Today we're going to be discussing accounts payable. So I don't want you to get this confused with accounts receivable. Accounts payable is going to be the office's organized system where the dental office owes and pays others. So this could either be writing checks to pay their bills, possibly paying out payroll, whether that be direct deposit or through writing checks. Reconcile the checking account. So we're going to go in depth with that, and we're going to get a little bit of practice in your assignment today in lab. So everything should be categorized, whether it's payrolls, utilities, supplies, classes. Everything should have their own categories and be very organized. That way it all goes into a file for when you're reconciling the checking account later. The less piles that you have to dive into, the better. So for example, if you're ordering your gloves, your masks, all PPEs, that's going to go over to supplies. The electric bill, gas, water, that's going to go under utilities. So things like that, you want to make sure to have very specific categories. So all of these documents are going to be organized and saved to pass over to the accountant when they go over all of the information. So I know writing checks seems like a little old school. Maybe other offices don't do that. You know, there's a lot of online banking and direct deposit, but we do it this way in our office, as well as this is the way I definitely want you to learn, just in case you go into an office that do both systems. And it's an easier way to track your information. If you're writing checks, then you have a record of that payment. So it's best to establish dates each month when those checks are going to be written. So if you're going to get your bills and you're going to develop some sort of filing system on where those unpaid bills are going to go. So for example, in my dental office, we take all of the bills and compile them into a folder. Then we have a sheet. On there will be the due date, the amount that's due, and then who we're going to be writing the check out to. So that way somebody can very easily, since it's going to be very organized, they can go into that folder and see what is due. A good practice is to send checks out 10 days before they're due to allow the processing. In case something happens in the mail or they wait to deposit the check, you want to make sure to give plenty of time. So an organized system will allow you to view those due dates. When paying bills, the office might either have a stamp or they might handwrite the date that it was paid. So for example, let's do something simple like the gas bill. So you'll get a bill in the mail, it'll have the amount on it, and then when you're going to write the check, on the bill you will write paid, the date it was paid, so you will decide when in the month you're going to be paying this bill, and then you're going to include the check number. You will be surprised how many times you'll have a supplier or someone that you owe that might have lost a check, or they didn't put it into their records. We're going to be very organized, right? So we're going to have everything very detailed, but you can go back to that bill. Again, you're going to be filing gas under utilities. So you'll go to your little utilities folder, pull the gas bill, and right on there, it'll have the check number. So it's a paper trail. That way you can get everything noted and know where it's at. That's why we like writing checks. So again, you're going to be filing those paid statements into the appropriate file. So gas bill, water bill, electric, that's going to all file under utilities. So everything should be categorized. That way, when you put all of your files together and get your accounting reports, everything's extremely organized and you know exactly where to look for that sheet of paper. We pay our lab bills in the beginning of the month. So we have our total of what we're paying to the lab. We have the invoice from every case that comes in, and we have our lab slip that attaches there. So if we ever need to go and look into a case and see, or possibly, you know, they broke tooth number 8, a year later they break tooth number 9, I want to check to see what that shade is, so I know exactly which file to go in to go pull up that lab slip. So that's why you have to be very, very organized and have everything categorized. When we're making our payments, we have to make sure that the checks are authorized. That way, depending on which account it's coming from, the doctor might transfer money out of one account to go to a different account. So the different types of checks that you're going to be sending, either handwritten, which is easy to do. The company or your office will have standardized checks that they already have made, and then handwritten checks will be going out. You will get practice with this in the assignment in lab on handwriting checks. You can have computer printed out checks. That's going to be printed from the doctor. There could be electronic credit card payments, electronic transfer, or direct payments, just like with payroll. You might have direct deposit. With calling a supplier, you could do an over-the-phone payment with a credit card or check or account number. So they might have your account information that they do an automatic transfer from as well. So all of this has to be recorded and documented. That way you know where the checks are going to, where payments are going out. If you're constantly doing everything on a credit card, you're not really keeping track of where it's going. So all of this has to be documented. Even if you're using all of these forms of payments or one form of payment, it all has to be documented in the checking balance. So again, we're going to get practice with that a little bit later in the assignment today. Believe it or not, most expenses are paid by checks. This is the easiest way to track and keep a paper trail of all your information, especially if you're making a really big purchase. So it's really important when writing checks to always write legible with ink. You never write a check with pencil. So you could probably guess anybody could easily erase that and write in any amount or pay to anybody else that they would like. So you definitely always use ink. Make sure that before you send the checks that they're signed by the authorized person. So depending on who on the account is authorized, most likely it's the doctor. Make sure that check is signed before you send it out. So if any mistakes are made, you do not use whiteout, you cannot erase. So you're going to have to put the words void on that check very large, which means nobody can deposit that check now. So when you're writing a check, any change, so for example, $15.75 or $15.33, if we're working with cents, that's going to be written as a fraction, because that's going to be, if we're using 33, that is 33 out of 100. So any amount of change is going to be out of 100. So if you're looking at the line below where it says 1575, that's going to be 75/100. That is how change is written. That's how you're going to be writing it on your checks and your lab assignments. If somebody is paying in the amount that is something small, like $6 on the check line, you have a really large space. So $6 is not very long. So you want to make sure to fill in any of that empty line or empty space with a dash or a wave line. And the reason why you want to do that is you want to make sure that nobody can add any writing afterwards. So if you write the word 6, anybody can add a TY to say 60. And that line is going to be what the bank looks at for what the amount that they are going to take out. Or for example, if you're writing 1575, somebody can add any number before it. So you want to make sure that you dash or wave out any empty space. Of course, always you want to make sure to check your bank balance before you're mailing out these checks, especially for big ticket items, because you want to make sure that there's enough in balance in order to write those checks. So usually the doctor will have that information and you just let them know, look, this is the amount that I'm going to be writing the check for. Is this okay? And then once you write the check, this will be entered in the check register. So this is going to be a ledger of a running balance that you're going to keep track of to know where you are. So again, you're looking at check number 3552. It should be in order. You shouldn't be missing any checks. And later you're going to be checking to make sure that those were in fact deposited in the bank, which is reconciling your bank account. You want to make sure that everything is accounted for. So, with most people doing online banking this day, most people don't have to fill out bank deposits, but this is something that we definitely want to do in a business when you are depositing money into the bank. So, you're going to be receiving your checks, you're going to take them to the bank, and then you're going to fill out a deposit slip. So, on this deposit slip, you're going to write down every single check that you're depositing, the amount, and the check number. And then, once the deposit is made, a receipt is going to be given back to you from the bank. So this could either be made through the ATM now with scanning on the phone, or it's possible to be transferring directly into direct deposit, but everything will have a receipt. So as you can tell, we keep that paper trail because you want to make sure that later when you get your bank statement in the mail that no changes have been made. So this actually happened not too long ago in my office where we had on the deposit slip, there was $100 and then there was a list of checks. We got a letter in the mail not too long afterward that said, hey, we're going to subtract $100 for your bank account because we only received this amount of checks. Well, I had the deposit slip, and as you can see there, they missed the $100 cash deposit that went in. So because I have a record of that, they had to go ahead and reissue the $100 in our account. So you have to make sure to have all of those receipts, all of your records, and that you know exactly where to pull that information in case that happens, because unfortunately it does happen. So reconciling a bank statement is something that I want you to be really familiar with for any worksheets, quizzes, and your final, because it could seem like a more concept, wordy idea, but it's actually just checking everything at the end of the month. So at the very end of the month, the bank will send you a statement that has all of your transactions on it. So it's going to say all of the deposits and all the money coming in, any bank charges that were made, all checks that were written are going to be on there, and all the totals also are going to be in the very end. So what you will do if you're in this position at the office is you're going to check that bank statement, and then you're going to have your list of your check register of everything that you have kept track of. So you're going to go line by line. I know this is very, very tedious, but it's a very, very important, and it can't be something that is rushed because even a cent can be missed and it will throw off a lot of things. So you're going to go line by line on the bank statement and make sure that the correct amount of money was taken out and put in that was supposed to. So you can imagine as a business owner, you have thousands and thousands of dollars coming in and out, and you want to make sure that the correct amount was taken out. So this is where you'll go to your checks. You know, it happens where, wow, one of my checks was not cashed. So you want to make sure, what was that check? What was it written for? Oh, that was written for the gas bill. Let me go find that gas bill, and now let me go call the gas company, because one, you don't want to be delinquent on your payments, and two, you want to make sure that that check doesn't get taken out months down the road, especially if you're writing it for a large amount. You are counting on that amount of money that you were already deciding that was going to come out of the bank account. You don't want that to throw in another month. So it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of checking all of those things. And if you are really, really organized, we are in our office. It's an easy way. You check, you have your records, everything totals up, you're good. You move on to the next month. So can be very tedious and complicated, but it must be done, especially, like I said, working with thousands of dollars and so many transactions and so many deposits. You have to be able to check that. And your checkbook should always equal your bank statement, even by a cent. It has to equal the exact amount. So all offices should have a petty cash drawer. So all this is a small amount of cash that you keep in the front office to give change to patients when they're cashing out to make purchases. So you want to make sure if they're paying with $100, if they're paying with $50, if they're paying with $20, you have all of the possible amounts of change that you can give back to the patient. And this is something that should be checked weekly. That way, when you go to the bank, you can continue to have the same amount of 20s, 10s, 5s, 1s, and change as well. So that has to be replenished. This can be done in a way where you take an office check and you write it as cash, and then you take it to the bank and then they give you that amount of cash. That way you're always replenishing that, because you don't want to be stuck. If, let's say, you have $100 that you keep in petty cash, it should be smaller just in case something happens, and you don't want that to be stolen or anything like that. You don't want it to be a large amount of cash, but let's just go with $100. You don't want to be stuck with 250s and then you cannot give cash to somebody that paid a smaller amount. So that should always be replenished. And so that it doesn't If you are the manager in charge of payroll, you may be writing or calculating payroll checks or payroll amounts. Luckily, there's a lot of payroll systems that will do all of this information for you, but you have to make sure that everything is being calculated accurately. So each employee must have their own file, and it must be always kept up to date. That way they have their pay stubs and they're able to contact you if you happen to be in charge of payroll and know where all of their information is. A lot of employees don't know that information right off the bat, whether it be withholdings, which will not get too far into from there, but you want to make sure that those stay organized. So before writing the payroll checks, taxes need to be calculated first. So each office will have a table of what those taxes will be, and it's all going to be done by a percentage. So those will all be calculated, or there's nice computer systems that will calculate them for you, but you still need to know what that is. That way, again, we're going to be checking them to make sure that they were calculated accurately. So the gross salary is going to be what is the amount that the employee earns before taxes are taken out. So simply, how much do they make an hour multiplied by how many hours they worked. So this is the amount in the beginning that you're going to calculate before anything's taken out. So this is not what is going to be written in the check. This is just going to be where they're starting out from before you start deducting any taxes or withholdings. If you're unfamiliar on what gross and net salary is, by the end of our assignment that we're going to be doing in lab, you will be familiar with it. So the net salary is going to be the amount that you're taking home. So for example, if you have a job, the amount that you get in your direct deposit or on your pay stub, that is the amount you're taking home. So all of your taxes and deductions have already been taken out. That is your net salary.
So that'll conclude today's lecture. On the last slide, there's going to be a list of a few different tax withholdings. Withholdings mean is things that is taken out of your check that pays into deductions, anything like that. Sorry, I kept saying that we're going to practice it in your lab. We're going to practice it in our lecture assignment. So you're going to go over all possible taxes that are going to be taken out. And sometimes it's a little disheartening seeing what you made before and then what you actually get to take home on that. Sometimes I don't like to look at that, but it is something that you're going to see and that I would definitely learn as an employee, that you're going to have, some of you already have jobs and see that, what you're paying into. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email or message me, and I can definitely help you out with that. I hope you all have a wonderful week.